Yo, yo, what is up? Happy three-game Saturday slate on a Friday night.
GM, GM.
It's a GN, but we're not saying good night as in bye. We're saying good night as in good evening. Thanks for hanging out with
I was
us.
saying GM is in good morning.
All right. Well, I see you've got the Draftkings gear that I had shipped to your crib. You want to show it off?
So this doesn't really fit. It's basically like a half shirt.
It's like a one of the like
but
a
I, f-
Ezekiel Elliott belly shirt.
but yeah, but I feel like it's a good before picture because we're coming down to the end of the year, and next year when we launch our show for thousands of viewers after one of us wins $1 million, we'll get to see it before and after. So fun stuff.
Sweet. I mean, this is a perfect slate to win $1 million, right? We got $1 million up top. Only 133,000 people to beat, and 3 games to get different in.
Right?
Tim likes the sweater and Giamonto. Yeah, I mean, it like the Thanksgiving slate we thought was like exciting because of Buffalo, Detroit, and it ended up being exciting because of New England and Minnesota. So I wonder, like, there's actually like some overlap with what teams are playing in this 3 gamer versus that one. And the totals are a bit lower, it's a bit later in the year. We have a bit less Coors Field going on. But I think there's definitely ways for this slate to shake out where all the ownership is in that Minnesota Indy game, and there's some in Buffalo, Miami. But I think we'll try and talk through different ways you can get kind of unique and still like have a chance for first without taking on all the ownership. You wanna sound good to you?
Yeah, for sure. And I like that you brought up the New England. Is it New England, Minnesota? The night
Yeah,
game on Thanksgiving, because I
yeah,
think
that's
that that's
crazy.
a good. That's a good reference for this slate. Because on paper it looks like bad,
Yeah, I mean that game
just in
had
terms of
like a
options. You
that
know.
game had a low 40s total. It was like by far the lowest of the three that day. It wasn't the middle game was like Giants Cowboys. And that game was like a 41 and it went way over 50 if I recall. Like just Jefferson, Rondre, Aguilar. So anyway, like the first game here is the most exciting one. But we'll talk about the positions and then get into the games. I think at quarterback, it's gonna be kind of spread. I think Kirk and Josh Allen jump off the page as far as the guys on the with the by far highest kind of team totals. But is there any one besides those two that catches your eye?
What were the two that you mentioned? I was
Kirk,
literally
Kirk and
listening.
Kirk and Josh Allen. Like Kirk is a bit of a pay down, and
Yeah,
Josh Allen is out. You can afford him because there's some cheap guys, but
yeah. I think those are the two main guys that like obviously project super well, and they look like they're the plays. I don't want to say they're in smash spots because I'm thinking about other stuff, but they definitely do appeal more than the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens or the Cleveland Browns. I do think that Matt Ryan is interesting from a leverage perspective. And why can't Tua wear some like cute like hand warmers, and they're gonna have all kinds of warming shit on the sidelines and stuff. Sometimes, we get too far into
they
our
had the
heads on
warmers
the
out
weather.
in LA for
Yeah.
Miami.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's gross, right? It's gross, but I mean, if you're gonna get Tua under 10% on a 3 game slate, and he does one of those slates where, and also like, let me just say one more thing. I mean, I don't know the structure with only 3 games in terms of talking specifically about games, but
Stage is
if
yours.
I was going to throw the ball in the snow, and obviously that means shorter routes and things like that and yards after the catch,
Yeah,
like if you let me draft 2 wide receivers, like within the top 5, you're going to select probably Tyreek Hill, probably first, and Jalen Waddle
sweet.
maybe second. So
Yeah,
like they're totally guys that can just bust loose on a 2 yard pass.
yeah. We'll go by the positions and then look at the game stacks, like the kind of normal structure. But to your point, like Kirk obviously it's a great spot. It's the only course field game of the three. But like at the end of the day, it's Kirk Cousins, right? Even though this is saying he's like by far the best projected play, and he's at 6K and he's going to get his projection is 20 points, but Deshaun and Tua are basically the same salary, a couple $100 more, and they're at 17, points. So if you like give up 3 projected points and it go from 30% owned down to, single digits,
Yeah.
it's definitely a good way to play it. If any of you people are sick fish playing cash, I think you got to kind of lock Kirk and move on. There's not all the reason to pay up for Josh Allen, just like structurally, like you can pay up for receivers much easier and than like having to pay all the way up for Josh Allen.
Yeah, and though we're going to show you guys the cash lineup, please don't play the cash lineup. Like,
why not?
Don't play cash on this slate, please.
Man. You got to force everyone to beat you. Before we get like to, because I think weather, or at least people think weather is going to dictate a lot here. So I pulled up Roth's report. First games in the dome. The Baltimore Cleveland, just a little bit of wind. It's like kind of cold, but nothing crazy. I thought like earlier in the week it was going to be snowy, but it doesn't appear to be. It doesn't seem to be an issue. That low total is just team based, not weather based. Miami Buffalo, something about winter storm watch, like all this stuff. If they're playing the game, like I don't really care. He's saying like the wind is like 15 mile per hour sustained winds, but we've seen Buffalo play in games with crazy weather before. If you recall, Buffalo played New England last year where Mac Jones and the Patriots passed the ball, I want to say 3 times, and then Josh Allen passed the ball 30 or 31 times. So I don't think like
Wait.
Do you remember that game? Yeah.
No, but I remember that both teams combined for like 60 runs. Are you sure?
No.
In the second half, I feel like Josh Allen threw like 10, 15 times, but
I mean,
I could be wrong. I mean, I'm old.
Let's see.
All I know for sure is in the first half, I think there were 3 rushes.
Yeah, Mac Jones went 2 for 3. Josh Allen 15 for 30. So like, and it's the same, running backs. So point being, like even in bad environments, like Buffalo, I think wants to pass the ball. Like they clearly don't trust the running game. That's why they're starting to use James Cook more. So yeah, I wouldn't be like too scared off by the weather. Keep an eye on the total. It's 43.5 now. Obviously, if this game is in Miami, it would be like over 50. So like, don't double count the weather, I think is what I would come down to. Like the weather is already like impacting the totals and it's impacting everyone's projections. I'm probably going to say negative things about the Ravens. It's like, so that's what, like, you can make a bull case for Deshaun at quarterback because the Ravens secondary has been attackable all year. They've given up a lot of big games to wide receivers, like especially big play receivers down the field. Like Jamar Chase comes to mind. The Miami game early in the season comes to mind. Yeah, no Popes, but thanks anyway. Yeah, so we'll stick with Kirk for now. Move on and get back into the game stacks when we get back around to it. Running back. DraftKings is not forcing you to play 3 running backs this week. I don't know if you've like gotten into construction here, but Jonathan Taylor seems to stand out a whole lot. Again, kind of game environment. His Jeff Saturday usage has been great, and Dalvin Cook in that same game. So it's like the 2 of them, and then it's, maybe it's Mostert because Wilson's out, and then otherwise there's a lot of uncertainty, or rather like not great on paper projections as you go down the running back list.
Yeah. Jonathan Taylor, even though, I think he got charged with a fumble last week, but it was clearly Matt Ryan's fault, or maybe it went over him. I don't know, but the bottom line is that every single time that Jonathan Taylor has the ball in his hands, it means that Matt Ryan won't turn it over that play, which is like a serious problem. And I think Jeff Saturday knows that as well and is really leaning into that. And you can definitely beat Minnesota's defense, both with the run and with the pass. So I get it. Like, I'm kind of my best ball teams have some low advance rate Jonathan Taylor. So I'm a big JT fan this weekend. I love it. I'm going to have a lot of them. But I mean, there's one guy that's really high owned playing against a team who also can't really stop the run. That's named Nick Chubb that literally no one is going to play. Well,
can Baltimore not stop the run?
It's 22%.
It's like a default thing, right?
Where 3 gamer is just math. Like,
Yeah, on the last 3 game where you had a lot more options, like Ramondre, you had both Cowboy running backs, you had, people wanting to play Buffalo stuff. Yeah, Dalvin then. This running back slate is much thinner than a normal 3-game running back slate. So like Taylor on a normal slate, Taylor and Cook would be in play, maybe Mostert, but like nobody else here would get clicked on like a Sunday slate. So with that context, like I think it's obviously a very good 2 running back slate. Um, you got to be careful playing Taylor and Dalvin together. But is there anyone like? I guess you're talking about Chubb because I think um,
Well,
he's going to
I
definitely
didn't
be left on
realize
the
it's
top
going to
2.
be. I didn't think it's going to be over 20% just as a leverage standpoint. Like,
Yeah,
I guess Baltimore's not terrible against the run, but we definitely have seen some teams able to run on Baltimore, and Cleveland really does like to give him the rock. They're not giving Kareem Hunt as much. I mean, he got more, I guess, last week as opposed to recently, but
is
I
that?
don't know. I wasn't expecting Nick Chubb to also carry over 20% ownership. People just hate his guts, so
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm
I think
not sure. I mean,
he's the comfiest
Cleveland,
click. Like if you want to. It's just like a leverage, he's the easy leverage on like, oh, I don't want to click Chalky Taylor and Dalvin. Let me go play Nick Chubb. And people like he's the only guy that's really going to get much ownership in that game, and people don't want to completely ignore the game. So I think that's why he won't be super low. Like 20%, I think he's like about neutral. He's grading out about neutral. Don't love it, don't hate it. The absolute ceiling, he only has like 2 career 30-point games, or maybe it's 32. I don't know how much you buy into, stats like that.
I I mean, I get it, but I don't worry about that
Yeah,
that
Baltimore's given up
much.
some, they've given up some on the ground. I think they're better attacked through the air, but then again, like Cleveland, we'll see. Hunt, man, we haven't gotten a Kareem Hunt game yet this year. I keep trying to kind of will it into existence. Like maybe that's part of my bets all bags, but like we have a multiple year history of these 2 running backs, and like Kareem Hunt having multiple games a year where he's,
Yeah,
not the guy, but he has like the game. You know what I mean? Um,
yeah,
so like I think Baltimore, I think they do have a pretty decent run defense. Like they are exploitable in the air, and maybe they get like Cleveland gets funneled into more of a pass type offense, and David Bell is going to be out, so maybe that gets more Kareem Hunt. And I actually want to talk about Demetric Felton to get really really weird. But I like Kareem Hunt at 4,300. Obviously, he's a 3-game slate guy. He's not a 10-game slate guy, but like that is a really good way, especially because it's a second game, right? So keep in mind, like if you start with Kirk Cousins or you start with like these kinds of running backs, you're going to get information after the first game. And Kareem Hunt is a really interesting way to get like kind of leverage off of Nick Chubb and just like getting on. People are paying up more at running back. So I think Kareem Hunt makes a lot of sense from that perspective.
well, I'll tell you who definitely cannot stop the run. That's Cleveland.
Yes.
I have them
Yeah.
down as like 31st DVOA against the run. So are people going to play J.K. Dobbins? So we got J.K. Dobbins coming back on a short week after his first week back. He smashed while looking terrible on tape.
Yeah.
What are people going to like? Is he in position to have success against Cleveland, and are people going to play him?
Yeah. I mean, this is saying no, right? Like 15% Dobbins. And that seems about right. I think it's because Dobbins' box score obviously was really good. And if you happen to watch, like he broke loose for whatever it was, 40 yards. And then like the last 15 of which he was like very, very hobbled, and he like stayed in the game. He ended up scoring. Um, so like he was good for DFS, and they didn't take him out. Like we saw him limping. Like the coaching staff also saw him limping. They didn't take him out. I will say, snap wise, he only played a couple more snaps than Gus Edwards. So
So
if you're
that's the
just
point: is
yeah,
what if on a short week it's Gus's week, and
yeah,
I'm not one to click the old Augustus button, but
yeah,
wow,
yeah. I mean,
it's kind of
If you want to
scary
talk
to
about,
think about.
yeah, if you want to talk about bad run defenses, like Cleveland is like one of the absolute worst in the league.
Yeah,
We've been trying to play running backs against Cleveland, for multiple weeks on full slates. So I really like the angle of playing whether it's Dobbins or Edwards. I think like Dobbins ownership, only 15% or so is not one where you have to go crazy with the leverage, but I think playing either Gus or Dobbins makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't play them both together. Like I know we talk about playing
Yeah.
like two running backs on the same team to get weird. These types of slates, I don't think it's that, but depending like how your first game goes, like maybe start with Dobbins, and if you want to get like more off the wall, you can go with Gus. But I think both are definitely playing the short week thing. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
Magnus, I think the real knock on Dobbins is just
Yeah,
the short week off of injury, and he literally did not physically look good. Like he
yeah,
had success, but that's different than like physically looking like a good running back. So I'm just, again, I don't really care how good somebody is. I care about volume. And so my only concern is like, will his volume take it, go down on a short week after that? Who knows?
yeah.
There is one other name I want to mention before
Is
we
it
move
Dimitri
past running back.
Felton?
No, you could do that bit now since we're on that game.
Yeah. So David Bell was playing in the slot, and when he's like Dimitri Felton, he's one of those guys that he's been on Cleveland for a number of years. He's a running back, and he's like objectively an awful play at his projection. And like if he was a receiver that where the floor is 3K, it'd be much better. But if you want to just play the like running backs don't matter, there's only going to be like one good score at running back, and Dimitri Felton, if he gets you like 10 points, can matter, then I think it's a really interesting way. Like I don't know that I would start rosters there. It depends on how the first game goes, but I think it's an interesting way to play this past game. He's listed running back. He has like with Bell out, I think he played 2 weeks ago. Bell was out, and he played like 38 snaps, mostly in the slot. So he's not one of those like preseason Tony Pollard is going to run snaps in the slot. Like Dimitri Felton is legitimately like might as well be classified as a receiver. So like if you
Yeah,
want to play a guy that's legitimately going to be 1%, I think that makes a lot of sense.
gotcha.
But it is a Galaxy Bro play. You don't have to play someone at 1% to get to the top of these tournaments.
Yeah, but I don't, on a 3-gamer, like you do need to think about a backup running back, or if it is the time where things like that can be the difference between shipping something big and
Yeah,
not doing that.
maybe better on
And
Showdown if there's a Showdown. But yeah,
with that in mind, I have a question. So there is a world where the Buffalo Miami game where there is a lot of running because it's actually full blown snowing during the game and blah blah blah. I get that Buffalo is still going to attempt to pass, and I'm sure
yeah,
that Miami is still going to pass. But what if Miami digs harder into the run than they normally would? They will not give, and it could be he literally can't handle it. But
mm-hmm.
like Raheem Mostert, there's no world where Raheem Mostert gets 20 plus carries. Like they won't do
Likely
that. I don't
not.
know
I
if
don't
they.
think it's happened.
Yeah, and now Jeff Wilson Jr. is out,
Yeah,
so
he is.
I'm looking at ETR looks like they have Salvin Ahmed as
Yeah,
the next man up. The Blitz, for what it's worth, shows Miles Gaskin as the last man up. So I don't really know who's that second guy, which one it is, but I will say this, that I do think they're, as a leverage play, Miami's RB2, whoever you're confident could be that guy, might be
yeah,
someone to save some money to build something expensive or get weird.
yeah. And it's the last game of the slate, so I think like if you start with a Raheem Mostert team and
Yeah.
somebody early goes off, let's say like Michael Pittman goes for 25, and you didn't have him, and you're like scrambling to try and have a path to the nuts, then I think I would lean Salvin Ahmed. He plays. I mean, Gaskin has some history in the past game too, but I think Ahmed has been ahead of him this year. It hasn't mattered yet. But with Jeff Wilson out, he's probably live to get, I don't know, let's say 5 touches without anything going crazy. But Mostert, I don't know that he's ever had 20 touches in his career. He hasn't in the last couple of
Right.
years that I just looked.
So if the
Yeah,
weather is real bad and visibility is real bad, like there's a world where somebody can get 10 carries.
sure,
So,
sure, sure.
who knows?
Yeah. Any lean Singletary versus Cook?
I definitely like Singletary more. They're just not consistently using Cook yet, and you know, I don't know. I guess they did drop Cook's price back down
Yeah.
a little bit, but I'm gonna play both. But my lean is towards I do think Singletary is the RB1. He is the guy who will get the majority of the rushing carries, and it's
Yeah.
just a matter of how long, how many dump off kind of plays are they going to run? Because obviously that would benefit James Cook.
Yeah. I mean, James Cook, like they are slowly working him more in. It just depends. Like I think Singletary's touchdown expectation is much higher.
Yeah,
But I think James Cook, you can definitely play him in stacks. It's more of like a price thing. I think they're both like it's a coin toss. It depends on like what works in your lineup. Man, we're in the weeds. Gaskin versus Ahmed routes. Yeah, I wish I knew. The most likely answer is it like that likely doesn't matter. But for what it's worth, projections do have Ahmed ahead. If that if that's a thing. So at receiver, I don't know why Freddie Swain. Justin Jefferson is going to be the highest owned and he's the highest priced receiver because that game environment. I think people feel the best about. You have Tyreek and Diggs also up there in price, and then there's a bunch of like the 5K or so guys like cheaper than they are a normal slate or like a main slate type thing where Pittman at 5,800 is actually pretty cheap. Thielen, Gabe Davis, and then there's a bunch of like outside of those top 5 or 6, the workloads are a little more questionable as you work your way down. But 3 game slate, all it takes is one guy, right?
right. And again, I'm sure we'll end up in the weeds after a little bit of chat, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I obviously, and I think all of us obviously probably have a little bit of best ball bias, our advance rate guys and stuff like that. But I would like to say that I can remove my bias for just a second and say I might lock Tyreek Hill in, and the reason is this: you're getting Tyreek Hill at half of the ownership of Justin Jefferson at 25%, if we're to believe this. And I think Tyreek Hill is like the least affected by the weather type situation. Like he's that guy that they will, no matter what, they will put the ball in his hands, whether it's
I think
for
they
a
kind of
little
have to.
2 yard thing, a screen right at the line of scrimmage. And he's, the most explosive player in football now. What is it, a hammy or something like that? I mean, I don't know, how
It
good
might have been
does
an
he feel,
ankle.
but
I mean, he practiced. I
Buffalo's
think he
playing
practiced today.
Miami. Yeah, Buffalo's playing Miami. They say he's good to go. I'm going to play it as if he's good to go. And he's a player that I think the weather, it's a much bigger advantage for the offense in the weather than for the defense, because
Yeah.
and he's the kind of guy, we talk all the time about trying to tackle NFL players. Let me tell you something. You go out in the snow in Orchard Park and try and tackle Tyreek, like
Yeah, no.
it is not happening. Like
No,
if
not
they're
an open
slipping
field.
and sliding, he's going to get loose.
Yeah.
What do you think about Tyreek?
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Like Justin Jefferson is the comfortable click because of game environment. But for the same price to give up, 2 projected points, like at half the ownership. I mean, just looking at this leverage score, Tyreek is jumping off the page as the most favorable receiver. I think that makes a lot of sense. Like that 1v1 Jefferson versus Tyreek. Buffalo, like their defense has definitely been banged up. They're getting like slightly healthier as the year goes on. I forget they've gotten their big cornerback back, but the defense is definitely not like top tier or not fully healthy at this point. And Von Miller's out. So yeah, I like the Tyreek over Jefferson in a GPP. In a GPP, I don't think you can pay up for Tyreek in like cash. So like Justin Jefferson, like just for the sake of like I'm plugging this in so we see what the chalky build is, and it's very like it's going to be. I think you were saying like the blitz had 8 out of 9 spots in this Indy Minnesota game. Like I think the ETR optimal
I
is
had
probably
a
like
setting.
6 or so.
I had a
Really?
setting off. It was too
Okay.
many players versus their own defense. So it is 7. It's the same as ETR. It's Mostert is Buffalo's defense, and then it's 7 players from that game.
Tyreek is sneaky strong. If you put Tyreek in Oklahoma drill, like I don't know, he could probably run you over or run me over.
Yeah.
I think like
He's a
eventually you
grown
could
ass
tackle him.
man. He's a
Uh,
grown ass man.
yeah, no, he's stronger. He's strong. But yeah, then outside of the Tyreek versus Justin Jefferson, which is interesting, like Stephon Diggs and actually Jalen Waddle. Waddle is like invisible at his price because you have those guys at the top and then you go all the way down like Pittman and down. And Jalen Waddle has not had, the box score success for a number of weeks. Like I think he's been banged up. He's been practicing in full, I believe, this week. He hasn't really done it since when's the last time Jalen Waddle had a big game? Like he hasn't had over 20 points since week 8. Um, but do you like? I don't think anything fundamentally has changed about Jalen Waddle. Just Tyreek has really been going off. So I think Jalen Waddle, depending on how your first 2 games go, I think um, Waddle's a good like GPP kind of leverage play.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely like Waddle. I'm more about Tyreek right now, basketball bias, but I definitely think Waddle is in play. It's good leverage, it's a good spot in the game, and he's definitely a buy low kind of guy. I do have questions, even though he's practicing fully and stuff like that. Just because his usage has been lower, his box score stuff has been lower. It's just like, is he fully healthy for sure? You
Yeah, I
never
mean, you
really
have
know
to.
that.
I think you have to like kind of take them at their word.
Yeah.
Because Waddle didn't like his snaps have been up there. So I don't think that they would be trotting him out there if he was like banged up, bad enough to matter. I will do the mission and build the team live. I don't know that I want to broadcast what Draftkings seems to think that my mission should be, but
Imagine
I
not
can
completing
confirm.
every mission.
I can confirm that I'm approaching bankruptcy because I keep playing Waddle over Tyreek for the leverage. But yeah, I plugged in Pittman and Thielen again because like those games and like their projections, like they do pop off, but they are very high owned. And these are guys, Thielen maybe more than Pittman, that really have not shown massive ceilings that it's like, you really needed Adam Thielen to win a slate. Like that has not happened this year. Michael Pittman, like maybe like once. But again, like this, we'll talk about that game, but Minnesota secondary is definitely exploitable. So I like the idea, of Pittman over Thielen. If I had to pick just one from this range, but then like Gabe Davis is lurking there too, and he's got, big time touchdown upside in Miami secondary. He's like somewhat beatable too. Like they have Xavier Howard and really not much else. So I like Gabe
Is Gabe
Davis.
Davis 5K? Good
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah.
How the mighty have fallen.
If you like Gabe
Suck
Davis
it,
at 5K,
Cabal.
you're gonna love him at 4,900 next week, probably.
I'm in for a Pittman game. I feel like Pittman game, the Pittman game is kind of coming. I feel like it depends on Jonathan Taylor having success and like kind of opening up the pass game. But like you said, Minnesota can definitely be beaten through the air. And, there's a lot of talk out there that Michael Pittman's not an alpha. He's a beta bitch and stuff. And I feel like this might be
Is
the
there a
week
lot of talk? I
where
think that's a very niche conversation that we've had.
there's a lot of talk out there.
Yeah, Pittman.
Yeah, give me some Pittman.
Yeah. And as far as like low price, so I'll sort by price. Is there anyone below Gabe Davis? So like at this 4,400 down to 3K, who's your favorite? Or is it like stack guys, or is there anyone here that you like? None of them are really high owned, which is interesting from like a structure perspective. Is there anyone who's your favorite 1 or 2 guys below 4,400?
Well, it's mostly based on stack thing, but I do want to get cute with, and it's kind of a, what do they call it? When you like, I need Jonathan Taylor like I need air for best ball, but in the world where Jonathan Taylor doesn't have any sort of game and we get a Matt Ryan game, I love, love, love downtown Doolin, Ashton downtown Doolin. If there's a
Baby.
guy that's going to take the top off this shitty secondary and defense, I could see him getting loose. I do like I know you're about to click Alec Pierce and,
Yeah.
Paris Campbell has been decent and stuff, but they're kind of working Doolin back in there a little bit. And I don't know, as a cheap flyer to throw in your Pittman stack, maybe even Taylor in the stack with Matty Ryan, I'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing 20 snaps a week. Like that's enough to get there. 1 or 2 plays. You've recommended worse things on these airwaves on full slates, I think. I don't mind that. I don't know that I'm gonna get there, but it's probably more of a stack thing, right? You're not gonna click like a random Ash and Doolin. It's more like
No,
the Matt Ryan or
he's
Kirk
only
Cousins.
going to be in my Matt Ryan weird
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yep.
I like Alec Pierce a lot. I played him on Showdown, not the week that you needed him, where he was like in the optimal. He's the optimal captain, and that guy used like 30K and like had the dumbest lineup of all time in that Colts Broncos game. Man, I have PTSD. Can like basically think of like every freaking Showdown slate and how I lost. But Alec Pierce, I think, stands out as far as like opportunity against this like Viking secondary, good game environment. I'm more excited about him than Paris Campbell too. Like Campbell, people are really excited when he was getting like I don't know 8, 9, 10, 11 targets every week. That's sort of like come down. I think Paris Campbell's come back down to earth. 6.35. It's like not bad. Like it's a far cry from this 11, 12 stuff. And like Alec Pierce, I mean, he's one of those guys. Like they're coming off a bye, right? They were one of those week 14 buys.
Yes, and that's another reason I like the Matt Ryan weird stacks. It's just in general, I don't have any data to prove it. We got a data bro in chat. Matt, thank you for bringing up
That's not
bringing the
awful.
rear end with
Not
the
awful.
spreadsheet bros. But I kind of like to get my hand in the dirt here and there. And team coming off a bye after a shattering loss, right?
Yeah,
Like a really bad loss.
really, really bad.
Well, I mean, they were literally in that game for nearly 3 quarters and then ended up losing to a
Were they?
50 burger by 30.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they gave up like 4, maybe 5 touchdowns in the fourth, but I like
Yeah, I
Alec
mean,
Pierce for that. Like, the rookie coming off the bye, he has 8 targets in 2 out of his last 3 games. Sign me up for Alec Pierce. I think he's one of those guys that, like he's one of the guy that has upside here. Like, I think Tim mentioned Deshaun Jackson. Like, and if you wanna make a case for, like, Trent Sherfield, like, if like, those are, like, emergency guys, like, you started off really bad, and, like you have to like you can't play the Tyreek. Like, how do you find a way to go to Sherfield? Cole Beasley, by the way, is not on this in the player pool. I don't know if he's like going to play or not. I hope
I
I hope he
thought they
does, and he
added
just like
him.
takes away some ownership from like Isaiah McKenzie, and then you could play McKenzie and not feel so
I
bad
thought
about it.
they added him. Who did
Did
they
they?
add?
I don't see him,
Wait, wasn't there 2 players that signed off the scrap? Oh, T.Y. Hilton might be the guy they added
but he's on the
to Sunday.
Cowboys.
To Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday. No, they
Yeah.
haven't added Beasley to the slate.
Now I was confusing the two. Basically the dust guys that got
Got it.
signed.
Got it. And then at tight end, we have TJ Hawkinson actually above Mark Andrews as far as like an adjusted points per dollar value. Like, so maybe people are paying up a little more at tight end than, conventional slate. It's very thin at tight end, similar to running back, where you have Hawkinson, Andrews. You don't even really feel good about Andrews. Then you have like Njoku and Knox as the like, they're cheap. So I guess we're going to have to click them type guys. And then like, if you're playing anyone outside of those top 4, you're really taking on a lot of uncertainty. Do you like staying with those top 4, getting off the board at tight end? What do you
Yeah,
prefer?
no, for the most part, I'm sticking with those top 4. I haven't decided how many lineups I'm going to play this week, so that'll kind of depend on how far away from the top 4 I get. Like, in my head, if I build a bunch of Matt Ryan lineups, I may get cute with the bingo cards that is the tight end situation of Indianapolis, which is like,
Tough.
one of them and you don't know who it is. Is it Granson? Is it Mo Alley Cox? Is Jelani Woods? Yeah, he's there. I mean,
Yeah, they're all
literally 3 tight ends, and any of them could put up a big game, and all of them could put up a goose egg and are likely to put up a goose egg. So
yeah,
if I do get a bunch of stacks with Matt Ryan, I'll explore those. But other than that, it's really those top 4. And I really
yeah,
like Hawkinson in that spot.
yeah.
I think
Gasecki,
it's the highest one.
yeah, Gasecki. It pains me to say he last caught a pass like November 13th from memory. So not for me. So I'm going to stick to like these guys. I will say, like, as it relates to like Granson, Woods, and Miller Cox in their last game, Granson played the most snaps, ran the most routes, actually like was in for blocking. Like, I don't know that he's like an every down tight end, but he's seems to be their like preferred top guy. And then Mo Alley, um, was ahead of Jelani Woods. Jelani Woods ran a few more routes, but Mo Alley's on the field more often because they trust him for a run game. Again, I don't know if it's going to be like one of those coming off the bye rookie things, and like Jelani and Granson are both rookies, so maybe they both get a bump. I think I'll just
I don't
try to
think
play
they
Granson.
know.
Yeah,
I literally don't think they know.
I think I would probably only click Granson just because he's like running the most routes and snaps, and I don't think like you're
Yeah.
getting enough ownership discount to take on the uncertainty. I can't fit the lineup that I want to do because the donkey only have 1,700 left, so we'll see who we have to come down off of. I do think Hawkinson is going to be the highest owned guy here, and let me cheat and see. Like I guess you probably can't pay for Jefferson, but because you have like Cousins, Thielen, Hawkinson here. Like this is saying to go down to Gabe Davis and then Mark Andrews at flex. But you could play like Singletary or Mostert. I think like Mostert probably makes a lot of sense in something like this. You pay up, I don't know, defense. Like again, this is like why cash is weird. It's going to be like a weird 1v1, 2v2, but I think basically you're going to be having 5 or 6 guys from that Minneapolis game or Minnesota game. Anyway, let's get into the fun stuff. That's cash, best plays, GPP time. So first game on the slate, 47.5 total. Joni Dome game. Indianapolis is at Minnesota. Minnesota is actually the top team total on the slate. Indy is number 3. Jonathan Taylor is going to get owned. Pittman. Everyone here is pretty much chalk. Is there anyone off the board in this game that you like for kind of game stacks? And do you want to be kind of over or under the field in exposure to this game? This first one on the slate.
Yeah, no. I mean, obviously with this ownership, like again, there's not really anywhere off the map you can really go aside from I do think that Matt Ryan stacks you can get a little bit cute there, and I'll definitely be doing that. But I will say that on Minnesota's side, I am leaning over on Cook and under on Justin Jefferson. I just think Cook's in a better matchup, and I think that the script is better for the Vikings to kind of get out on a lead and try and run the ball and do all that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, Justin Jefferson is like maybe I don't even know if it's maybe anymore. The best player in the NFL. So it's hard to say like he's in a tough matchup or anybody would shut him down. But there are weeks where the game script just flows a little bit differently, and I'm going to be over on Cook this week, and I'm going to be under on Justin Jefferson, and I am going to play some Matt Ryan stacks, both with Jonathan Taylor as part of the stack and without it.
Yeah, I'm less pumped to play Matt Ryan. I don't know that he's like the 5,200 versus the 6K for Cousins. I don't know that you get enough savings to like what is Matt Ryan's ceiling, and can you capture his ceiling just through his weapons? That's usually how I talk about Kirk Cousins, where I'm usually like, I'm not going to click Kirk Cousins because I can just click Jefferson and get all the exposure to the scoring that way. But I am more interested in Cousins, like maybe even playing like one way to get different in like a field like this one with 130,000 people. Like if you play Kirk without Justin Jefferson, I know that's the actual popular cash build, but in a GPP, like I think Jefferson and Kirk are going to be obviously the most popular combo. But like, can you play Kirk, Thielen, Hawkinson, and Dalvin in that team, or like maybe even if you want to play KJ Osborne, like they actually scheme him some stuff. So I like getting different. Like, of course, Justin Jefferson is a great spot. He's the best receiver in the NFL, best skill player in the NFL. Like, can you fade a guy that's 9,150% owned? Of course.
Yeah, I definitely think you can. And, it may not seem like much with Matt Ryan being only 800 cheaper than Kirk Cousins, but like I'm talking about trying to jam Tyreek, jam Hawkinson, jam Taylor, jam Dalvin Cook. And so that $800 does end up kind of being the difference.
Yeah.
Between like getting a starting like 1 or 2 wide receiver and having to get totally into the weeds. So
yeah. And then one thing, like kind of combination of games, like because Justin Jefferson, to build him in, he's not in the cash build, like the comfy cash build. If you're paying up for Jefferson, like he's going to be popular, but the combos, like you can get weird very easily. Like what about a Jefferson and Tyreek? And now you just kind of have to like get cheap, and like you might want to play 2 on this team, might want to play Kirk and like some random cheapies, like, Alec Pierce probably fits really well in this kind of team. But I think like the Jefferson Tyreek combo is actually going to be much less owned than like a Jefferson Gabe Davis combo, let's say, or
Yeah, for
Jefferson like
sure.
Jonathan Taylor. So like I like JT, like the Vikings defense definitely doesn't scare me. Like the Colts total is like 22 is not super high, but for the Colts it is actually pretty high.
Yeah.
As far as like not hand in the dirt, but like hand in the spreadsheets, I guess. Since Jeff Saturday came back, like they are running the ball a lot and feeding Jonathan Taylor, but they're running like I want to say 60 or 62 snaps a game, which is like very, very high, especially what compared to what it was. So I think that they're running like a tempo offense, and that's baked into the total, but
Yeah, and
it,
we've seen
it's
it
going to be
in
more
those
exciting.
Island games, right? Like Matt Ryan, and I don't even think this is coming from the sidelines. This is like one of those savvy vet kind of things. Like Matt Ryan, when he sees personnel on the field, like he will go hurry up just randomly. He'll go hurry up for 2 or 3 plays. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where veteran QBs can kind of, they kind of have free reign to kind of do that. And so that's helped them like run more plays and kind of have more success as well, I think.
Yeah.
Just catching a defense off guard or in the wrong personnel or in a favorable personnel for what Matt Ryan wants to do.
Agree. Yeah. Um, and yeah, as far as like I guess like the lowest owned guy, like I think Osborne is like somewhat playable. But I do like Alec Pierce probably the most, and I guess you can play tight end, one of these tight ends, in a stack. I don't know that I would go double tight end. I don't think the cheap guys have enough like raw upside on this slate. Um,
Yeah, I don't like double tight end in the slate at all.
so all right. Baltimore Cleveland is really not very exciting, but there's only 3 games on this slate, and I think everybody agrees that it's not exciting. No one here is going to be over, Njoku's 33%, but nobody else is really cracking, 25, which is very, very meaningful. Cleveland, we were talking about, so the total's 38. Cleveland is a 2.5 or 3 point favorite. Baltimore pass defense has been kind of susceptible, this year, and Cleveland's run defense has been susceptible this year. So I think Baltimore's kind of built to potentially take advantage of Cleveland's run defense deficiencies. And then Deshaun Watson has been absolutely terrible since coming back, and I don't think anyone is too upset by that. But maybe this is like kind of a get right spot for him, and Baltimore gives it up in the air a little bit.
Yeah, that could be. It could also be a spot where Deshaun Watson just sucks and he's no longer good at football anymore, which is what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Njoku is a very interesting play. I think that Baltimore's defense is improved against the tight end spot in terms of, Roquan's really, really good in pass coverage and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's had a direct impact on that aspect of their pass defense. But Njoku is also quite a good player, and they run him in routes outside and stuff like that. So I definitely like Njoku. I like the Baltimore running situation, though we talked about it earlier. I am concerned. Just, we've seen coaches do this all the time where, I guess Saturday is not, I'm thinking of this like Thursday night. Saturday is not as short of a week, but
No.
bottom line, J.K. Dobbins just did not look that healthy, but he also smashed and performed really well. So I just have concerns. Like, is he going to carry the full load? If he does, I really want to play a lot of J.K. Dobbins. If not, then, is it going to be a Gus week? If it's Gus week, I really don't want to play Gus and all.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then the passing game for Baltimore, I mean, obviously there's the Tyler Huntley, Mark Andrews narrative, right? That
Mm-mm.
didn't really play out last week, probably because Tyler Huntley, how early did he get hurt?
Not early. Like that wasn't why Mark Andrews didn't get there.
Yeah.
Huntley was pretty bad.
Yeah. Huntley I'm not comfortable having Huntley as my quarterback for money. It just can't go
I think
there.
that's, yeah.
So,
I think that's the consensus though. So I think like,
there's a lot of leverage here for sure.
yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know that I'll go crazy playing 4 or 5 guys from this game, but if you wanted to play it skinny, like a Huntley, Huntley Andrews and Amari or DPJ or even Chubb, and just play 3 guys here. And if you wanted to get into that game stack from the first one, I I think that would actually be a really interesting way to get, like, let's say you're playing Miami Buffalo to kind of flop, and you say like this game gets there, but you think Huntley keeps pace. Um, and it's likely that if Huntley gets there, it's not because he's going to be spreading the ball everywhere. He's probably scoring on the ground, and like one of his guys is going to score one or maybe even 2 touchdowns. So it's not like you have to double stack him. I mean, I guess you could, but these guys aren't getting there from like multiple 100-yard games. Like Andrews is going to get there if he goes like 6 for 80 and scores, or like one like Demarcus Robinson goes, 5 for 70 and scores, like that type of thing. It's unlikely that, like, so you don't have to go crazy to stack this game and get leverage. Like this is grading out um, as one of the best plays, like, for ownership. It's like super rare to get, Mark Andrews under 20% on a, 6-team slate. And, Tyler Huntley at, 13%,
Yeah.
I think. So like, I like that combo. It's not the best on paper matchup. I think Baltimore probably does want to run, but Tyler Huntley is, that run game also. So maybe
Yeah.
that's the leverage
And
off of J.K. Dobbins being kind of gimped up.
yeah. The other thing that I think it's important to note is just from a real life football perspective, Baltimore's kind of, they're in an absolute battle, right, with Cincinnati, and now with other teams with the wild card. Like their playoff lives and stuff are on the line. And when you have veteran coaches like John Harbaugh and stuff like that, and you have a division game, and he knows just as well as we know how bad Cleveland is against the run. And there's just a lot of situations with a backup quarterback where it just makes sense for Baltimore to really try and establish this thing and
Yeah.
like keep the clock moving and get out of there with a win and pray for Cincinnati to lose.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. But from like a GPP perspective, I don't want to root for Deshaun Watson, but
Right.
Baltimore secondary is attackable. They have been all year, more so the
I get it.
beginning part of the year. But um, like even the Jags, like that was like the infamous Zay Jones ceiling game that came against this Baltimore secondary. So like, why can't DPJ and Amari get there at very low ownership? And Deshaun, like there's some quotes about Deshaun, like them wanting to use him like passing more down the field. I don't know if that's because like they've taken him out multiple times for Jacoby Brissett, either for like 4th and 1s or like Hail Marys. But they're paying Deshaun Watson a lot of money to then put him on the bench for Jacoby Brissett to come in. So I think that they might have just been trying to tell people like, all right, I guess like it's Deshaun's team, like it or not.
Right. Yeah, and I get it. And for what it's worth, like I don't know, I'm gonna have to just get over this Deshaun thing if he's actually an NFL starting quarterback for next year. And
Probably.
it's easy for me on main slates to just be like, you got 10 to 13 games, like I
Yeah.
can just make a case to fade Cleveland's passing offense just because there's always going to be someone else that can be good and blah blah blah. But here we are on a 3-gamer. There's 6
Yeah.
quarterbacks that are starting, and he's one of them that's starting in a good matchup. So you definitely have to consider him. I just like a couple other things particularly on this slate, so I'm not going to get there.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to play a little bit of Chubb and Hunt, and I'm going to play a bit of Njoku, but I'm
Yeah.
going to be off of the Cleveland passing game in terms of Cooper, DPJ,
Yeah.
stuff like.
I wouldn't blame you. And then the last game, Miami Buffalo 43.5. I was saying like if this game is in Miami, the total would be over 50. But
Yeah.
keep an eye on this one. Like if it like plummets to like 40 or 41 or something, then like I wouldn't say you have to exit by any means, because these guys we were talking about are all very good. But do keep an eye on that and like make sure you trust whoever you're getting your projections from, that they account for totals and weather. And I think like pretty much everyone does. But with that said, like that actually is going to lead to kind of some suppressed ownership, because the prices, Draftkings didn't price it as though, this is going to be in a snowstorm. So, Buffalo 25 total, Miami just over 18, which is pretty low. But the ownership, Diggs and Tyreek and Mostert, Josh Allen might get some, but nothing crazy. Like certainly a lot less than the first game.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely going to play some lineups where if it's not 8, I'm definitely going to play some lineups where 7+ players are going to come out of this game, just to kind of watch the earlier day games and then decide how I want to attack this game and
Yeah.
just pray that every single thing fails, you know?
Yeah.
But I will say, though I talk about getting cute with Matt Ryan, I mentioned earlier Tyreek Hill is. I'm probably going to lock Tyreek. I think I'm going to have him in every single lineup. And my favorite play by far is Tua on the slate. Just,
Yeah.
I
Huh.
mean, Tua's had a couple of down weeks. He hasn't, been as
2
good.
weeks.
And, there's the Miami narrative in the snow and, heaters and all this and that. But, Mike McDaniel knows how to call a game. And I feel like Tua is just, he's in a bounce back spot. And I guess most importantly, I mean, I'm rambling, but
Yeah. No, you're good.
7%.
Yeah, it's very, very low.
On a 3-gamer, 7%. Even if that's wrong, even if that's 10, 15%, like there's a lot of leverage there for a guy who can go nuclear. And,
Yeah.
I understand that maybe the weather may take away the 40-yard balls and stuff like that, but I've already talked about like McDaniel will find a way to get the ball into his receiver's hands no matter what the weather situation is. And Tua can be the beneficiary of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think earlier when we were talking running backs, you were saying like, maybe is it Gaskin? Is it Salvin Ahmed? Like, because we know like Mostert probably isn't going to get 20 plus touches in case this turns into a running game. But I think Mike McDaniel, rather than like saying like, all right, Salvin Ahmed, here's 15 touches, like, why don't we just say, hey, Tyreek, here's like 5
Right.
drag routes or 5 carries. So like,
Right.
I like that perspective too, especially like as the weather gets more shaky. That actually makes me kind of like Tyreek more, especially relative to ownership, because I imagine ownership is only going to go down with negative weather
Exactly.
news. But I wouldn't really care too much about weather here. As far as like what's your favorite kind of way? So like, I guess you were saying Tua and Tyreek. Would you just play those two as a skinny? Would you add, Mostert, Waddle, Sherfield, Gesicki? Like Miami's total is pretty low. So how many guys on a Tua team would you play?
Yeah, so Gesicki's definitely not in my player pool, but I'm looking at taking 3
Including
I'm
Tua?
sorry, three plus Tua, so the maximum of
Okay.
4. For the
Okay.
most part, I'm going to be doing Tua plus 2,
That
plus
makes sense. Yeah.
Tyreek, or plus Waddle, or plus Sherfield, or I I don't think I'm going to play too much Mostert, but
Hmm.
there will be some times where I take Ahmed or Gaskin, depending on what I come up with in terms of who's going to be that guy,
Yeah.
and then bring it back with 2 guys, 2
At
to
least
3
probably,
guys.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
Knox is one. Gabe Davis. This is kind of that 5K price tag, and this. Yeah, Gabe is kind of like an ugly kind of a player. I feel like this game kind of suits Gabe. Like Gabe doesn't just go run crisp routes with sweet cuts, and I feel
Yeah.
like everything he does is ugly. And so if you add a snowstorm, it's like I could just totally see Gabe
So
Davis
ugly
on
that it's
some
beautiful.
weird throw streaking down the field.
Yeah. I mean, he's very, very cheap.
Yeah,
So I do like that a lot. Like relative to upside, I think he's going to be like somewhat popular. I don't know that he'll be less owned than like Adam Thielen, like let's say, but for his price and like Michael Pittman for sure, also more popular than Gabe Davis. So I like Gabe for his upside and McKenzie too. At his price, like
yeah,
his usage has been pretty good. I wonder like what Cole Beasley does, but like we've already seen like Buffalo has brought guys off the street, like John Brown comes to mind. Like, oh my God, John Brown is active and he plays like 2 snaps. And that was just a waste of however much money on every entry for Showdown that I put on John Brown.
yeah.
That's my problem. That's my fault. That's not Sean McDermott's fault.
I really think the Brown Beasley thing is more. It's more like depth, like experience depth. That if
Yeah.
a guy goes down, if a guy needs a breather, you can get him out on the field. They know the offense. Like both of those guys know this offense, and
Yeah.
I don't think the intent is for them to actually play anything meaningful. It's just to be there to provide veteran leadership, to provide depth if somebody goes down, and maybe bring them along for a playoff ride or something
Yeah.
like that. I don't think they're fantasy relevant until somebody goes down.
Yeah.
They clearly do not trust Khalil Shakir yet.
No. Yeah. That's
They
what I
don't
was
think
thinking.
he's ready yet. And then I think they had so Crowder's out for the season. They let go of Hodgins, right?
Yes.
Clearly, Tanner Gentry's not ready to play in the NFL. So I think these are just
I
depth
never will
guys,
be.
just in case, you know.
Yeah. Yes, I wouldn't get if there's like Cole Beasley's team, like you can't play him on the say. I wouldn't get scared off of McKenzie.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
Dawson Knox, another thing. So Miami's actually been a very good tight end matchup
Yeah,
this
I love
year. So
Dawson.
like they've given up. Like Jordan Akins had a big game against them. Cole Kmet, if you remember, was that the game where he scored twice. They've given up like double digits many weeks. Like I mean, Mark Andrews burned them for 29. Dawson Knox is not Mark Andrews. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But Hayden Hurst, Irv Smith, Fryermuth, Hawkinson, Harrison Bryant, like this is the list of like all those guys who scored 10 plus. So Dawson Knox, man, it feels like you play Dawson Knox in every short slate and he literally never fucking gets there. But
Right.
why not? Why not tomorrow? Njoku at 4,200 is going to be a lot more popular, maybe twice as popular as Dawson Knox. And like, fine. If Njoku's like twice as high owned, like tight end is like we talk about, like tight end is easily the the best position to just here take 2 projected points so I can give me half the ownership. I don't care. Like if your guy doesn't score a touchdown, he's not going to be in the optimal in all likelihood.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like Dawson Knox in the spot. He's one of the guys that I like just a little bit less in terms of the weather stuff, but at the end of the day, he plays the tight end position. And when they get in the red zone, outside of the 5-yard line, like he's definitely one of their red zone targets. And
I mean, on the
sometimes
field, you just don't use
sometimes
him.
when it rains, it pours with him. In terms of touchdowns, and I could definitely see him getting a red zone target or two. And
Yeah.
in that case, the weather really won't matter.
Yep. Sweet. You want to build a team?
Yeah, let's build a team.
Yeah, I'll let you start off.
Give me my. Well, I don't know. Do I want to give the people a team here? Give me Tua and Tyreek.
All right. Like that. I'm gonna go with Justin Jefferson because I think it's gonna be really hard. Like structurally, like a lot of people are just gonna be ignoring this game, and like I may be
Yeah,
I may be one of them. Like you don't need to have someone from all 3 games, but obviously you need at least people from 2 games. So like these are the 2: Miami, Indy, Minnesota. But like I like the idea of mixing matching the Tyreek and Justin Jefferson because I think structurally it's really hard to get there without having to punt off a spot and take on some uncertainty. And let's find a way to do it.
all right. Well, we've spent quite a bit of money here, so I'm gonna do us a solid and save us a little bit of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna plug in Kareem Hunt.
Oh boy, 4,300. And all right,
I'm trying to help the team.
yeah. I mean, I will say so. I reviewed it on the Thanksgiving slate. If you go back, like there's a lot of years of 3-game slates on mostly on Thanksgiving, but like in playoffs and stuff, you'd be surprised. Like almost all the time, the ownership, like don't set a max ownership rule. Like think of combos and things like that, and like leave some
Right.
salary. And like there's ways to get unique. You don't need to play the 1% guy. So having said that, like because I think this combo, like the 2 of Tyreek Jefferson, is going to be a fairly unique construction, and then like Kareem Hunt is going to be like 10% owned. We don't have to get like super off the board. Like I'm not going to eat chalk at every spot, but if you get like different in 2 spots, like that's enough. You have a path to first
I
and
agree
uniquely.
completely. Yeah.
Man. All right. So as far as if you're playing Justin Jefferson, you probably want to play someone on the Colts. Taylor versus Pittman. I'm probably like I lean Pittman. Just to play like that passing game, like Minnesota secondary. Like we actually talk about Baltimore secondary more than Minnesota's, but Minnesota secondary is like egregiously bad and it's banged up. Very young secondary, with the exception of like Patrick Peterson. It's like a combination of both very young in that the guys aren't good yet, and then very old because the guys are super washed up, which is not a good combination. It was like every week, like DJ Chark like went off last week, Garrett Wilson week before, like Aguilar if you're like in on Thanksgiving. A lot of big games at receiver, and I think Pittman you get less owned than Jonathan Taylor. So gonna plug him in.
Okay. Let's plug a defense in so we can kind of
Yeah.
see.
Do you want to like as far as like defense takes? I think like there's no one jumps off the page. You can like, and they're all like fairly priced. You can do the pass attempts thing. Is there one that you wanted to like specifically jam in before I cut you off?
I mean, I really don't. I think it matters very little, but when I click these lineups, I'm mostly taking the Ravens
Okay.
and I'm taking some Browns. I haven't been playing the cheapies very much, but I do think
Yeah.
I do think you're fine if you want to play like the Dolphins or stuff like that.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I
we
would
talk
plug
about
the Ravens in here for now.
you want to go Browns because we have Kareem Hunt. I mean, I'm not
Okay.
against playing defense against the position, but
Yeah. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't
Tyler
matter.
Huntley starting. And
Yeah.
no, do the Browns. We just mostly want to see the money.
Yeah. Just like quick overview on defense, like the Colts with Matt Ryan average like 2 turnovers a game, which is insanely high. And they run a lot of plays.
Good point.
So like the Vikings are a good play. Like Ravens and Browns, like it's the lowest team total or the game total, so obviously that makes sense. Buffalo Miami, a lot of dropbacks. And Josh Allen is fairly turnover prone. If you want to play like slop fest kind of game, that makes sense. And like if you want to fade, chalky Kirk Cousins, like Colts defense, like so you can make a bull case for every one of them. There's not, I don't, it's, I would just, if I was running an optimizer, I legitimately might just say like max 20% or 25% and just like randomize it. Maybe not super helpful, but that's defense. All right. So I won't make you use your spot on defense if you want to go with a running back, tight end, or flex.
Yeah, let's bring our Miami back with Dawson Knox because I think
I like hitting tight end with the stack makes sense. And we're running out of money.
Yes,
which is what happens when you click Tyreek and Justin Jefferson.
It's gonna be unique. It's gonna be weird.
Yeah, like if I'm running low on money, like my instinct is to go to Alec Pierce. I wonder like maybe either Pierce or McKenzie. The problem is if you go to McKenzie, then you're only left with like 4K at running back, and I don't know if you want to play 4K running backs.
No matter what, we're in the 4K range of running
I'm
back.
going to late swap Pittman and go down to Pierce here to buy us some cash here, and then I'm actually going to go with Raheem Mostert here. Like he's caught some passes, and if you just want to play, concentrate offense thing, so like that, and leave you not like all the money in the world, but enough to find somebody.
All right. I mean, wow. So we're in the flex spot. What do we have? I'm on
4,800.
4,800, and I'm looking. Wow.
We could also change defense. If you want, we can go down to. Please don't dupe us, Tim. I'm throwing this in the $20. Please don't dupe me.
Shit.
If there's somebody like a 5K or so, like we can go from the Browns defense down to the Colts. We can I don't think anyone's 4,900.
Hold on. Do we have one Buffalo?
We have just Dawson Knox. Gabe Davis is 5K. If you want Gabe, we can go down to the Colts defense, or we can play McKenzie or James Cook in the flex.
I think James Cook makes sense for this lineup, and yeah, give me James Cook. Cook. Wow, did we just win $1 million? I like this lineup.
Question mark? Yeah. So please don't dupe this. I might even play the variation with the Ravens defense too. Yeah, I like that. It uses all the salary, which like if I had a full portfolio of lineups, I would go. I would not want to use all the salary on every single one. Started strong, finished gross. That might just be the tagline, not only of that lineup, but maybe the show as a whole. But thanks everyone for stopping by. Good luck tomorrow. We'll catch you Sunday morning? Question mark.
Yeah, why not?
All right. Good luck. Leave some bullets for Sunday. We got a fun 10-game slate. But good luck on the 3-gamer. Cheers.
Win your best ball teams. Cheers.
Well, yeah, good luck. Good luck week 15 best balls.